Hi, welcome. Welcome to the Thursday deep dive. Appreciate you making time. For this edition of At the Mic, I am your host, Keith Malinak. And I don't know, it might be a cap day. I don't know. What are we doing up here? Yeah, I think it's a cap day. Oh, my goodness. I hope you're well. We got so much to talk about. We got so much to cover here. Thank you to Hero West for always making sure the show shows up at themicshow.com, where you can get the YouTube link, the Rumble link. Tomorrow morning, it'll be available on Spotify, iTunes, all over the place. What else do I need to tell you? I don't know. Just shout out to Wes. Follow him, of course. His handle is we only the best graphics here at that guy at PGU. So PGU standing for Pat Gray Unleashed. I produce that show. That's my day job over at The Blaze. And, of course, shout out to Gabby, who keeps the Instagram hopping. I mean, oh, my goodness. At Jeffy Apologist on X is her handle. Thank you, Gabby, for all you do at The Mike Show on Instagram. Okay, now, my next guest is no stranger to the Thursday Deep Dive. I love him dearly. He is former FBI agent Steve Friend. You can follow him at Real Steve Friend on X. He hosts his own show, and it is the American Radicals podcast, and I'm going to bring him in here. Steve, where's the best place to check out your show, sir?
Well, you can find it on rumble.com/amradpod, or you can just check it out on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, because we stream the audio there as well.
I like that. See, you got a nickname for your show, the AMRAD. I like it, the American Radicals. And it's probably the coolest logo in all of podcasting. You know, it's the Hamilton.
Credit to my co-host Garrett O'Boyle, who was actually a fan of that musical, and he put an AR-15 in Alexander Hamilton's hand instead, so we didn't get banged with a copyright violation.
Hang on a second. You say that like Hamilton's not a good play. I don't like, and I'm just assuming that I picked up on a little sarcasm or something there. But I am not big on Broadway shows, and I haven't seen it on Broadway. I've just seen it, streaming. And I thought it was awesome. Did you not have that same opinion, or did I pick up the wrong vibe?
I'm not going to cast aspersions on anybody. I didn't actually watch it.
Okay.
I am not a fan of the theater. The only thing that I like to do for fans of the theater is say that my favorite play is Wicked, because I know that makes the people who are elitists very uncomfortable.
That's awesome. Okay, so you and I, oh my goodness, have we got quite a bit to chat about today. I took notes. I really I prepared for this deep dive, if you can believe that. And it's all about, so, okay, let me back up. You and I were going to talk on last week's deep dive here at Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern on X. And last week we were going to chat about the about the Kash Patel and Dan Bongino interview with Maria Bartiromo over on Fox Business. I think that, I don't know. Is that where that originally airs? I don't know. So we were going to go through that. And, we had a scheduling conflict, and we made it for today. We were going to go through that. We had some other FBI-themed topics to talk about. You are the answer man when it comes to all things FBI for me. Well, lo and behold, we had this rescheduled for the last, week or so. And last night, Kash Patel shows up with Brett Baer. This morning, Dan Bongino shows up on the curvy couch for Fox and Friends. I want to say at the onset of this conversation, I absolutely love both of those guys. I love them. Got to know Kash through various podcast interviews over the years. That's where I primarily knew him. Bongino, I've talked to him personally in the halls at the Blaze. Super awesome guy. A really good friend of mine, was a part of Dan's show when he did that before he took the public sector job. And I have nothing bad to say about these two guys. I love them dearly, and I was rooting for them, and I wanted them to be in the FBI at the exact post that they hold today. But we're 4 months in to this administration. I don't think I'm alone in saying that I have questions that have yet to be answered, or at least answered satisfactorily. And who better to talk to than Steve Friend, former FBI whistleblower. You, sir, you know your stuff. and you look at these interviews and these actions by the FBI through a completely different prism than I would. And so, where something may look one way to me, or I might have questions, you see things completely different and you have answers. So, I guess let's go chronologically. What do you say? And I thought, look, I don't know how much of this we're going to be doing start stopping here. I thought we would do the old Rush Limbaugh trick where you press play on stuff and you stop and you analyze it along the way. We could try. There's only one Rush Limbaugh, obviously, but we can at least give it a shot and see if we can get some answers here, or at least have you. Maybe, I don't know. You might be able to I don't know, explain in more FBI parlance, I guess. I'm trying to find because I've got two clips of or two different parts of the interview with Brett Baer. So yeah, that's part one. Okay, cool. So let's start at the beginning. It's about 20 minutes with Cash and about 15 minutes with Dan. If I have a question along the way, is that cool if I just stop it and ask you, Steve, to address?
Yep.
Okay. And then if same thing with you, if there's some place that you want to stop this, by all means, holler. I will warn the audience that there will be moments during these interviews going to be annoying as hell when the YouTube ad pops up and interrupts the flow. But here we go. All right. So anything you want to say at the onset here, Mr. Friend?
I'm just happy to be the Tim Walls guy who can code talk this to you, Keith.
How do you look in a camouflage hat? Okay, so here we go. This is Brett Baer last night with FBI Director Kash Patel.
I mean, we're joined by FBI Director Kash Patel.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to stop it every 1 second, I promise. But I have to address, why are they sitting in chairs that have their feet dangling 2 feet off the ground? That is the most absurd look. I'm sorry.
In the gymnasium where you do defensive tactics, which is super old.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, they're getting a new building, you know.
Yeah, excited to find that out. But I don't think the academy is going to the new building. They might be moving that down. There's a lot. The Quantico training facility for new agents is going to remain. The Huntsville, Alabama facility is going to be for in-service training for agents who have already matriculated. So they're not getting rid of Quantico anytime soon. And Brett Baer fawning, I guess, at a later point over Hogan's Alley.
Oh, no. Here we go. Okay.
is a problem. But we'll get to that.
Okay, we'll get to that. All right. So I just wanted to point out, I don't know if they didn't have chairs, the normal chairs. I mean, this looks okay.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the time.
Welcome to Quantico, Brett.
This hasn't been on TV, this kind of behind the scenes. This is where an FBI agent or analyst starts their journey, right?
Absolutely. The first grade facilities that we are trying to dedicate to the men and women who want to join the FBI need some upgrading, as well as the standards that we need them to meet the violent crime. And all of that is engineered right here in Quantico, Virginia. And we're thrilled.
You have actually no training on violent crime at Quantico.
So applications to be an FBI agent.
Hold on. Oh no, here we go. It's already starting. Okay, so what was your comment there?
You have no training on investigating violent crime at Quantico. I mean, it's a police academy. I mean, they teach you driving and shooting and defensive tactics, but the actual investigative stuff that you do does not involve violent crime.
Okay, so do we want to talk about the applications here, the FBI? Recruiting numbers here. Did you want to touch on that at all?
I do, because this has been a bee in my bonnet since Christopher Wray used it.
Oh no!
For the same purposes. He testified multiple times. I know Matt Gaetz, Eli Crane, they both sort of went at Chris Wray during the hearings, and both times he was prepared to throw back at them the number of candidates from Florida and Arizona. He was prepared for that. And I can think of no better analogy than a restaurant owner who was approached by customers saying, I get food poisoning whenever I eat at your restaurant. And the restaurant owner then says, well, I have a record number of applicants to become waiters and busboys. So I'm not going to take your complaint seriously. Meanwhile, I pay my waiters and busboys 3 times what all the other restaurants in the area pay them. So it's just not a good retort, but it sounds good because unless you know, you know.
Okay. Boy, we're off to a good start. Let me get the closed captioning off there, because if you tuned in last week, you learned on the Friday live stream. My doctor told me I'm a good candidate for hearing aids, which would explain why I leave the closed caption on everything. The family loves it. Okay, so here we go.
Back in March, it was about 5,600. The last time the Bureau saw monthly figures like this was back in April 2016. But you're seeing big numbers.
We're seeing huge numbers, and I think that's in large part to the administration's response on which way the FBI wants to go. Last year alone, the average for per month application was about 2,500 applicants per month. The first 2 full months of applicants we've had since I've been in the seat, we're at 5,700 applicants a month. So that shows me there's an excitement for the American citizen to join the Bureau.
All right, so let's talk about some of the things that you're doing. You're doing a lot of things all at once. One of the operations is on fentanyl, Operation Raptor. It's really across 4 continents, but you not only the fentanyl, but also the precursors to fentanyl from China.
Brett, almost no one's talking about it. Fentanyl is a synthesized.
Hold on, never mind. I'm not going to nitpick. Everybody's talking about it, right? Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry. Let me press play.
As a manufactured drug. You don't clip it from a tree. And if you want to choke off the amount of fentanyl that's pouring into America, that's killing an American citizen almost every 7 minutes, you got to go to the source. So one of the first things I did when I became the director of the FBI, I said, we're going to mainland China. We're hitting up the fentanyl precursor laboratories and the banks that are moving the money and the transshipment routes. We started that over almost 90 days ago. We're going to suffocate the snake. We're going to cut off its head. We're going to use our interagency partners at Treasury for sanctions, at State Department for diplomatic negotiations. But the simple fact is the Chinese and the CCP have gotten smart. They said, okay, we're going to stop sending fentanyl precursors directly to Mexico because you've done such a good job at suffocating the southern border. We're going to send them elsewhere through other agencies, through other countries. And we are attacking those points to choke off the fentanyl precursor distribution. No one has done that before.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Steve. What you just heard there, do you have any problem with that?
No, I have no problem with the federal government trying to address this threat. I mean, it's a weapon of mass destruction.
It sure is.
I just don't know that the FBI should be the lead on that.
You and I are having the same thought on this. I don't have a problem with us stopping it. It feels like China is turning the tables in the opium wars, and it feels like that's exactly what's happening here. But I'm with you because I have to mention this every time you're on, because if the FBI is an investigative arm of the government, then they should be investigating. They shouldn't be. They should be unarmed, right? I love that plan of just letting them be the investigators and turning it over to local authorities when it comes to the actual use of force, right?
Yeah, and when you have the priority set of we're going to investigate the fentanyl dealers or the people who are manufacturing it, what will inevitably happen is there will be hundreds of hours between investigators and prosecutors, and there will be a triumphant press release 2 years from now where they have indicted multiple people from the People's Republic of China for fentanyl manufacturing and distribution, and they will no way ever face American justice because China's not going to extradite them.
Okay, so that is an important, that's something you've mentioned in the past. Why is it that we constantly hear about we get these press releases from the FBI that say exactly what you just said? Let's say they go and serve a warrant for someone in China. That is a waste of manpower. I don't know why we're involved internationally, especially when there's nothing you can do about this. So yes, it's almost like a for show press release that this is setting up for. So who would be the lead arm, I guess? And again, I don't want to get hung up because I know we have so much to tackle here, but I don't know who would take the lead on that. Any thoughts?
I mean, you probably have to do something with Interpol, but really, ultimately, China's is its own standalone existence, and you have to just fortify here at home and keep it from coming in across the border.
To date, this year, we have seized 1,000 kilograms of fentanyl in the United States of America. That's 480 million lethal doses. That's enough to kill everyone in America and Canada combined. And that's just in these 3 months.
You know, you coming in before you got this job were obviously a critic of the FBI, how it was being operated. Now, after being on the job for as long as you've
I saw the pink salt recipe in a
All
30-second
right, an
video.
Oprah
21 days
ad.
later,
Yes.
my friend's speech.
Hold on, I want to
no
pay
one could
attention.
believe I was the same woman. Today, I'm here to teach.
Been on the job. What about the FBI did you get wrong before becoming director? Like, did you have some
That's a good question. What was your view of the FBI before you got this job compared to what it is now? I think that's a good start. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the setup for it is, will you demonstrate humility and say that you might have been wrong about something? It's an opportunity. I mean, he's not going to say,
okay,
I was right about everything. It's worse than, what did you get wrong? Well, Brett, it's far worse than I even imagined. Like, that would be the response I would probably give him.
All right, let's see what Cash says, shall we? Okay, I should have written down that Oprah thing and revisit it later. Look, really, I want to be a different
She's looking good these days.
Confusion that turned out to be wrong about the Bureau.
I think what I was a critic of was the leadership, people who sat in this seat before me and people who were the deputies and the very senior portions of the Bureau who manipulated and weaponized the Bureau. I was a fierce critic of it because I led the Russiagate investigation and I proved that my predecessors went to a federal court and lied to them just to weaponize the FBI and the DOJ.
People who lied were not in leadership.
That is 100%
just
true.
in leadership.
Say it again.
The people who lied to the FISA court were not just the director and the deputy director. It was not limited to just the people at the top. He's correct that people lied, but there were some rank and file, as they like to say, the brick agents who were involved in those investigations they weren't in leadership. So I think he's actually minimizing who was responsible for that.
Right. I mean, I could just Page and Strzok come off the top of my head, right? All right.
True. I think one of the things that surprised me the most, and pleasantly so, was that the amount of men and women at the FBI that hated that they did that to the Bureau. And that when I got in the seat, when Dan Bongino got in the seat, they said, we want to fix this place. We want to work with you. We've been trying to do it for years. We've been trying to increase training. We weren't able to. We've been trying to take the technological advancements around the world and import them into the FBI. That hasn't been done. And so we've just seen a void in terms of long range planning at the FBI that all the men and women at the FBI wanted to do, and their leadership wouldn't let them.
Okay.
Steve?
So let me restate this another way that doesn't sound so flowery.
Okay.
There were people when I came in who said that they had had problems with prior leadership, with the bad things they went on with the FBI, where they completely destroyed the reputation of the agency that they work for. And they just kept their heads down and just followed orders. But now that you're here, boss, they want to be your friend. Now, I know one of two things about these people. Either they're gutless and they don't deserve to work there, or they're snakes and they are just playing the next boss and they don't deserve to work there. I'm still waiting for the person that stepped up and said, this is wrong and I'm willing to put it all on the line. Those people aren't there. The guys like
that was
Garrett
you.
O'Boyle.
That was you and Garrett and a few others. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Here we go.
You know, you were on with Maria few.
All right, so now we're gonna go and revisit, and Brett's gonna play a clip from the interview that aired originally Sunday. So this is the one that we were originally going to chat about here.
Weeks ago, and you said this.
What we can do now is continue to put out the documents and the information that these people withheld from the American public. You're about to see a wave of transparency.
What do you mean?
Just give us about a week or two.
All right, we're almost at 2 weeks.
All right, yeah.
So,
okay.
This is about Crossfire Hurricane. You just talked about that, all that you've been learning.
Do you want to give a quick thumbnail sketch of Crossfire Hurricane for those that forgot?
Crossfire Hurricane is the investigation into Russia. The fact that they somehow, the allegation was that Donald Trump was a stooge, an asset of the Russian government, which was a derivative of it was Oppo research from the Hillary Clinton campaign, which was then laundered over to the FBI. And the FBI took that, leaked it to the media, and then when the media reported on it, the FBI then took the media reports and said, see, now it's been confirmed to the media. Then went to the FISA courts and lied to the FISA courts in order to obtain wiretaps on the Donald Trump campaign, all for fake allegations that were never substantiated, that essentially hamstrung his campaign and in the first 2 years of his presidency.
Okay, so I'm going to write myself a note here. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to be, you may already have the answer, okay? But here's the question. Well, first of all, can we agree, you and I, Steve, that the FBI was absolutely dirty to the core during things like Crossfire Hurricane. Yes, we agree. Okay, it's dirty. Okay, so here's a question that I want you to be thinking of. And again, if you have the answer, save it for later, because after we go through these two interviews with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino from the last 20 hours or so, I want to revisit that question, and I want to ask you, kind of like an optometrist would. And I want you to tell us: is the FBI better than it was? Is it worse than it was, or is it about the same? And so that'll be our question later on. Okay, so let me get back to the video here with Brett Bear.
Can you give us a little of that wave of transparency?
Absolutely. So just quickly on Crossfire Hurricane, that is a continuing production. We have found material, and I'm the Crossfire Hurricane guy, that I didn't even know existed in FBI holdings.
So there's been held someplace else, or?
That's been stashed away in locations that people thought we wouldn't find it because we wouldn't know to look for it there. And as promised with my congressional partners, I'm working with Congress on constitutional oversight, because that's what the American people deserve. And those documentations have been flowing to Congress nonstop on a rolling basis since.
Now, Bongino gets into this more specifically in the interview this morning that we'll talk about later on, about where some of these documents were, according to Patel and Bongino. It's very interesting.
That interview. But more importantly, people have had questions about January 6th and whether or not there were FBI sources, not agents, sources on the ground during January 6th. And I told you I would get you the definitive answer to that. And we have. And we are in the process, again, of working with our partners to divulge that information. And it is coming. And I will tell you this, the answer to that question will surprise and shock people because of what past FBI leaders have said about it.
Okay, so anything you want to say at this point, Steve, or should I keep rolling?
Well, we got an Inspector General report last year about that, where it said that there were 26 informants there. And I think that's underselling it, because I know that there were emails circulated in the lead up to January 6th where they were asking people if they had sources who were available to come for it. And then it also sort of underplays the number of sources there who are there on behalf of the federal government. It wasn't just limited to the FBI. But him handing it over to Congress, again, January 6th is fully pardoned at this point. There's no ongoing investigation. From my perspective, it should just be turned over to the American people and Congress. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Former FBI Director Chris Wray eventually admitted to Congress there were 26 FBI confidential human sources in around the Capitol January 6th, but not actual agents. Can you?
How much should good car insurance cost you a month?
Come on. I don't know.
$80?
What are you paying for car insurance, huh?
My insurance is going up, man. I'm worried.
That's true.
You know what? It's on my to-do list, as a matter of fact. I have to have a conversation with my insurance company, because I just noticed the renewal period, and then it went up a couple $100 for the whole family. I'm like, what? Ain't got no wrecks, knock on wood.
And it's an older car. It doesn't make any sense. Thank you,
Right.
Biden-inflation.
Are there more than that? What you're learning from that?
I can say that that is definitely a piece of the truth. Why it took a ton of time for and questioning in Congress for the director to get that point is what I'm trying to eliminate from the FBI. If Congress asks you a question under oath, whether or not there were sources in around January 6th at the Capitol, you as the director of the FBI need to know that and not deflect and give a DC answer. You have to be prepared for that. And that's the answer we're giving. That's the answer Chris Wray should have given.
And eventually,
I'm hearing chuckling from the other
He
end.
gave the DC answer and said that I'm working with oversight and not turning things over. But
As he was answering that, I was thinking, I bet Steve asks me to stop it here.
But in his defense, he does say there that the partial truth, which is worth going into briefly, because in that Inspector General report about having agents at January 6th, the FBI was very lawyerly and specific in its answer. And I presume that the Inspector General knows that, because the Inspector General's office exists to protect the FBI, not to actually investigate it. It's a government investigating the government and determining the government didn't do anything wrong. But the question was, were there undercover agents at January 6th? And the FBI very specifically said there were no undercover employees at January 6th. Now, you wouldn't know that the FBI has an actual designation of UCE, undercover employee. They're agents, mostly agents, but they can be task force officers. They're people who work for the FBI who go through a selection, a tryout, and specific training, and then they become a UCE, and they're available to be an official UCE for any case around the country. If you say, I need an undercover employee to help me, that will be provided for you. Now, the layperson, like the Keiths out there, when you hear undercover agent, you just think, well, it's an agent who's just standing there in plain clothes, maybe with a MAGA hat on, who's trying to find out what's going on. They didn't answer that question. They said there were no UCEs there. They never addressed whether or not there were agents there who were dressed in plain clothes.
Okay.
Partial truth.
Yeah.
And Cash called it out.
Okay.
Everybody's going to know the whole picture.
Yeah, because the American people deserve that. And look, no one's more frustrated than me. Remember, I was chief of staff of the Department of Defense on January 6th. We said that we were ready, and the president had previously authorized the National Guard to be there days in advance. I spent 2 years, a small fortune, grand juries to testify to the truth. And what happens now, years later? We were right. Bowser and Pelosi rejected that offer. And instead of figuring out how to prevent security lapses like that ever again, the American public spent tens of millions of dollars and countless hours on TV listening to conspiracy theories because those in positions of leadership failed to tell the American public the truth.
But there is a lot of conspiracy theories out there.
There are.
The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria, you said.
Here we go. Buckle up. What'd you say, Cash, about Epstein?
As far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
Okay. Okay. If I'm reading too much into this, stop me. Okay. But correct me if I'm wrong. You have sat in on, or you've interviewed suspects before, right? You get them in a room, right? Okay.
Plenty of times.
All right. So I assume you're a body language expert. I will say I am not. Yes. I mean, is that part of your training to know when people maybe?
I would say that's on the job training, but yeah,
Okay.
you can get a little bit from
On the
read interview skills. Yes.
Am I looking too much into the way his whatever, man? I don't want to do this. I don't want to be that guy that nitpicks. But since I have you here, and I know you have experience in questioning people that maybe you don't exactly believe everything that they're saying, I'm just asking: is there anything in the body language here? In this
a lot of conspiracy theories out there.
There are.
The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria, you said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet.
Anything there, Steve, or am I just being
where he takes his lips and purses them together?
Oh, I wasn't even doing this. I wasn't even. Hold on, is that a thing? I was doing the really long close your eyes thing. Now, granted, you're talking to a guy who gets minimal sleep, so I'm sure if I watched me on TV, it would look like I'm always lying, no matter what I'm talking about. What'd you have for breakfast this morning? I had a bowl of cereal. I'm probably so. I don't know. I'm just asking you because I have the opportunity to have somebody who is in these situations questioning people. Steve Friend. I didn't even know the lip thing. Is that a thing?
The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria, you said, as
it
far
looks
as
like
you
he's
know,
got more to
killed himself.
say.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet.
Oh shit!
I'm telling you, he killed himself after he was threatened.
I didn't even catch the lips going. Like, I'm telling you, he killed himself. I could tell you more, but I'm gonna close my mouth now.
It's not inaccurate. It's not untruthful if just speculating that he killed himself after being coerced or extorted or something to that effect.
Okay. Here
That is the Epstein files. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is the same as everything else. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever, but I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it. So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that. And it takes time to go.
Okay, real quick. I don't disagree with that. It takes time. I cannot imagine the amount of data that they have to go through the files, assuming it hasn't all been destroyed. That set that aside for a moment. But I think what helps us to feel so burned by this administration on that front thus far is this big production of Pam Bondi having the influencers show up for an empty binder of stuff that we already knew. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know how much cash was involved in that whole production. But when you have spent the last 4 years over promising, or promising on day one that you're going to have the files, and then you have the influencers come up there. At this point, it's really a bad look. If it instead they had just said one time, look, when we get that, we will share it. The end.
They painted themselves into a corner.
They've painted themselves into a corner.
Yeah.
Thank you for being much more coherent than I am.
They promised it. Pam Bondi said it's on my desk.
Yes.
And this is something that it's very important to the American people, and they haven't come through on it. And I mean, it could easily have been, hey, we are investigating 200, 300 individuals, and we don't want to compromise those investigations, but we've stood up a task force with this many people and this many assets, and then you would have gotten a lot more pom-poms waving off of that.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Rachel Darwin in the chat, day one turned to 1 day. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And I don't want, because you and I can disagree on the importance of the Epstein files and all that stuff, and that's not the issue. It could be fill in the blank files, right? It's not. Well, let me back up. It actually, for me, I do want to know the pedophiles in government. I do want to know which policies were supported because of whoever had blackmailed and had this stuff hanging over the heads of our decision makers. But
I think it's also important to know that, I mean, and prioritizing which cases that people want to know about and which should be transparent about most. Arguably, the cases that have no statute of limitations issues are the Epstein pedophiles, because those statutes never run out if you're committing those offenses. Whereas the explanation of, well, we can't do anything about Crossfire Hurricane because the statute's already up on that one, or that there's the Dobbs leak out of the Supreme Court where there's actually no crime that's been violated. There isn't a statute because there isn't a crime. And this one, they don't have the ability to hang it on their hat. Well, hey, look, they got away with it. Statute of limitations. Sorry. Nope. It's forever. It's forever.
So two things. I just want to finish the point on the Epstein files. It could be any topic, but it's a credibility issue at this point with the promising, with the whole gathering at the White House and all this stuff. It just becomes a credibility issue, and it makes it difficult to trust anything after that.
And now I get to introduce my credibility Ponzi scheme
terminology. Cool. Well, before you do that, can you please educate me? You said that there's no statute of limitations. What on pedophilia? Like, what are the crimes that you can come back to at any time? Murder,
murder, sexual assault of a child.
Okay.
So that's those definitive. Okay, but typically in the federal system, it's 5 years for most crimes.
Okay.
So that's the concern as it comes to even like deprivation of rights charges you could possibly bring against government actors with the Crossfire Hurricane. I mean, that happened in 2015, 2016, 2017. I mean, we're well beyond the statute at this point. Now, you still want to expose those people, and so there can be some modicum of accountability, but they're not going to go to jail for that. But as far as sexually assaulting a kid, no statute that we can have to worry about. They can go to jail whenever it is that we can put the bracelets on.
Okay, I've lost my. I have like 7 little whiteboards in this room, but to illustrate, no pun intended, how disorganized I am, none of them are within sight of me right now. So I have a handy pad here. Am I going to need to do any doodling here on the Ponzi scheme thing that you're about to explain, or what?
No, I think it's just what is a Ponzi scheme? It's it's a Bernie Madoff style where you recruit people and give them the false conception that you're going to enrich them, right? You give me a little bit of money and I turn around and invest it and I give you a nice return. Now, there's really no product or service actually there. All they're really doing is continuing to recruit more people into the scheme to pay off the earlier investors. Eventually, it runs out. It will collapse in on itself because you just run out of people to recruit, right? That's the concept of a Ponzi scheme. So you make a promise, Epstein lists. Your credibility is on the line right now. And now people are upset. So in order to stave off the collapse of the scheme, because you're not ever going to turn over the list, you make more promises, more big promises to be transparent.
Oh, no.
And then when the time runs up on those promises, you make more promises. Okay. Eventually, you're just going to run out of promises, or people are just going to stop extending you the grace of patience and the credibility. and the scheme will collapse in on itself. You're going to have to deliver on something. And it seems to me that every time that they're up against that, I guess, statute of limitations, whenever the deadline's here, it's just another promise on another big thing.
Okay, but I want to reiterate that I love Cash and I love Dan. So you're not necessarily saying that they went into this to be nefarious or to deceive. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're going back to they've painted themselves into a corner, right? And they have to give us something. Is that what you're saying here?
I think they're going out there and they had genuinely want to turn this over, and they're saying, well, I'm the director, I'm the deputy director, I can make that happen. And then they go back to the office. The people that say, oh, I really want to be on your team right now, are saying, hey, boss, we can't do that. And then their faith is in those people. It's in the wrong people who don't have their best interest and are not letting them actually execute the duties and responsibilities of their job. So where they have the power to actually do that.
So are you of the opinion, and this is probably a question that a good host would ask later in the conversation, but from your perspective, do you think that at this point that Cash and Dan are have they been absorbed by the swamp? Have they just realized the swamp is undefeated? Are they being threatened? Are they being compromised? Like, what is your gut telling you at this point of this journey?
I want to think the best way is to go back to the Maria Bartiromo interview that Dan Bongino made a comment to her, and he said, every day at 7:30 in the morning when we show up to work, there are 100 level 10 things on our desk. Okay. I think the reasonable question then is, who's putting them on your desk? Because you are being captured by the people that are putting them on your desk, because you might not necessarily understand what it is the job of the deputy director or the director of the FBI, because they're both outsiders. They haven't matriculated through the agency itself. And from my experience, the director casts the vision and the strategies, and he maneuvers and moves resources around and prioritizes things. The director is not involved in investigating cases. Neither is the deputy director. Okay. So when Dan Bongino says he has 100 level 10 things, it's not administrative things. These are high profile cases. He even remarked that, do you want something to explode in Washington, D.C. or New York City? And we have to address those. Well, no, you don't. You have to trust the investigators to do their job. That's not your job. You're being fed that by the people around you saying, hey, you need to be briefed in on these high profile cases every single day, all the time, to distract you. And like, look, just for perspective, brick agent, me, working a case, right? Let's say I'm even working a high profile case. I report to a squad supervisor.
That's what I'm going to ask you. That's exactly. I was just starting to do this here. Do you want to work our way down, or do you want to work your way up?
Let's work our way up, and you're going to need multiple pads.
Oh, hell. That's the government for you right there. So hold on a second. That's an interesting thought that I haven't even considered. You think that the reason that we may not be getting what we want from Cash and Dan at this point is because someone on the inside, maybe with bad intentions, is just intentionally overwhelming them.
Yes, they're overwhelming them and giving them the impression that it is their responsibility. And it is vital for them to have intricate knowledge of cases, which they don't need to have, right?
Oh my goodness.
So,
okay, so you want to start at the bottom here?
Let's start with Steve. Steve reports to a squad supervisor who is, his initials are SSA, Supervisory Special Agent.
So that's who you, okay, so you're the SSA guy, okay?
Who reports to an assistant special agent in charge.
Hang on, let me get Cash off the screen here. I'm sorry. We'll come back to you, Cash. We got to make sure we can see this hierarchy, the federal government here at work. Okay, so there we go. Steve Friend, agent, right? Agent. Is that right?
Agent Friend.
Agent Friend. SSA, whatever that stands for. And who's above SSA?
ASAC, Assistant Special Agent in Charge.
Oh, gosh.
Who reports to a SAC, the Special Agent in Charge.
Hang on a second. That's Special Agent in Charge. Sorry. Wait, another SAC? But not an ASAC?
No, just
got a lot of SACs
don't call
over
him,
there.
Don't call him a SAC.
Oh, no, they don't like that.
Party foul. They don't like that.
All right, what's above the SAC?
Well,
no, don't answer. Careful answering.
Above the SAC is is an ADIC.
Shut up. Are you for real? How do you ADIC?
ADIC.
Oh, good.
Assistant
This was on purpose.
Director in charge.
What year did this? When did our perverse society come up with these acronyms, bro? Come on.
All right. So that is in the field. Now you have a parallel hierarchy
hang on,
at
okay.
headquarters.
So we have 5 levels out in the field. All right, it kind of looks like this. You go from an agent to a special agent, right?
To a supervisory special agent.
Supervisory special agent to a
assistant special agent in charge.
A SAC.
To a special agent in charge, a SAC, who reports to an ADIC.
Okay, if I didn't know you better, I think I'd be getting punked right now on my program. Okay, so all right, so that's just out in the field. All right, so now you're going, behind the walls of the Hoover Building for your
Now you got to go to Hoover Building because we got to get up to the director. So,
oh, sweet Lord.
The introductory into management is the program manager.
Program manager. Not any acronym for him?
PM, but program manager is kind of an accepted
Okay.
vernacular. Yeah.
All right, there we go. Get the program manager. What's up? What's above?
Reports to an assistant unit chief.
Assistant unit chief.
Yeah, there's lots of units and ADICs in the FBI.
I almost let that one go, but thank you for bringing that in because I appreciate that. Somebody needed to. Okay, so then we went from the program manager. We're inside the Hoover Building. Assistant unit chief. Who's above the assistant unit chief?
The unit chief.
Oh, okay. Unit chief. All right, we got that one. All right. So remember, it was 5 levels out in the field. 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon there. So now we're okay. So who's above the unit chief inside the Hoover Building?
Assistant section chief.
All right. This is bureaucracy at its best. Assistant. What'd you say? Assistant what?
Section chief.
Section chief. Before I do these programs, I've really got to find an actual Sharpie. This is like a knockoff Sharpie or dry erase.
It's probably made in China.
Right. I couldn't even order. I got the Amazon Basics, and that'll hold on a second. Let's see here. Made in. I bet you're right. I don't see it. Okay, so we're up to the 4th level. What's after the assistant section chief?
The section chief.
Oh yeah. Okay. Come on, Keith, get with it. Section chief. Okay. What's above the section chief?
Deputy assistant director. Dad.
Okay. So all right. We're getting closer. Dad. Deputy assistant director. Okay. And then who's above that?
Assistant director.
Okay, so now we're up to Dan Bongino, right?
No, he's a deputy director.
Deputy director. Oh my gosh. I thought I was going to cheat. I thought I'd already gotten that paper ready here. Okay, so I'm sorry. Who's above Dad?
The AD, assistant director.
Oh, man, why do I keep asking the stupid questions, man? All right, who's above the assistant Dad?
The executive assistant director.
Shut the hell up. Come on, man. This is a joke. All right, who's above that guy?
The associate deputy director.
I don't like this game. Holy crap. We're already 9. We're 9 levels up on the inside the Hoover Building. This is asinine, bro. Oh my word. Okay. All right. What's next?
Oh, it's the deputy director.
Okay. All right. So we got there.
You got there.
Deputy director. That's Dan Bongino. And then right above him, the only one above him is Cash Patel, the director of the FBI. All right, ladies and gentlemen, did you catch that? So here we are. When we're out in the field, we've got 5 levels. We've got the Agent Steve Friend, who reports to the SSA, who reports to the ASAC. The ASAC reports to just the simple SAC, and the SAC reports to the ADIC. Did I leave something off there? Am I missing something?
You got it.
Okay,
you
so that's
fluent FBI acronym at this point.
I mean, if you get promoted or reassigned from the field into the headquarters, you miss out. You lose the benefit of all the fun acronyms.
Well, and let me throw one more wrinkle in here, because you can't really promote straight at headquarters. You have to ping pong back and forth to the field. So you would go from agent to program manager at headquarters, and then you'd pop out of headquarters and be an SSA, and then you'd go back to headquarters to be unit chief.
Okay, but this, especially if you talk about 2 who I still believe are honorable gentlemen, between Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, this would lend credence to they don't have experience in there, and which is good, which I think is still a benefit as a plus. But look at these levels of bureaucracy that they're having to battle through, man. Like Daniel Boone trying to carve out a trail in Kentucky, man. So, okay, we got 5 levels out in the field. And then I counted 11 here inside, right? Program manager, assistant unit chief, assistant section chief, what was the dad thing? I was lazy.
Deputy assistant director,
assistant deputy assistant director, executive assistant director, what was that one?
Associate
deputy director. Then we get to Dan Bongino, a deputy director, and then Kash Patel, director of the FBI. Holy crap. If you want to know what the problem is, it's summed up right there in that illustration as far as
every single one of those people in the headquarters building is making in excess of $150,000.
Okay, hold on. Let me back up here. Is there just one of these individuals?
There's one director, one deputy director,
okay,
one associate deputy director. It's a very straight line. But then once you go to executive assistant director, there's 6 of them.
Hold on. Damn it. I don't like this game. Hang on. So there's one director, one deputy director, one associate deputy director, one executive assistant director, one assistant dad.
No, there's 6 executive.
I'm sorry. That's where we pick up 6. How many assistant dads are there?
Oh, no idea. That just starts branching out.
So more than 6.
Oh yeah. There's more than one in each branch. So yes.
Oh. Wait a minute. How many FBI buildings are there around the nation?
So 50...
and is this replicated in all of them? This hierarchy?
No. So this is the Hoover building. This is the headquarter building. Then once you go out into the field, there are 55 field offices.
Okay.
And there's about 250 resident agencies, which are basically satellite offices for those field offices. There's over 300 standalone buildings for the FBI. Now, almost every one of them has at least an SSA, a squad supervisor in them. Some of them don't. I didn't actually have one when I was working in Iowa. My squad supervisor was working in Des Moines, and he was responsible for our building and his building, but that's pretty rare. Normally, you have at least one level of management in the office. How many
people are employed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
38,000.
And what is the average salary? Do you have any idea? I'm just throwing that.
It will depend on if you're an agent or not. But if you're an agent, where there's about roughly 14,000 agents, so a minority of employees in the FBI are actually special agents. Once you hit the GS-13, which is you're a tenured special agent, you get there at the 5-year point. And there's adjustments for where you regionally, the locality adjustment. But just in general, in general, you're making about $130,000 a year.
Wow.
And most people don't know this. I mean, because it's public information, you can go to the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, and you can look at the GS pay scale, and it will tell you that a GS-13 makes a certain amount of money, and that's true. But if you're an FBI agent, you're a federal law enforcement officer, and as a result of that, you were entitled to what's called law enforcement availability pay, LEAP, which means that whatever that chart says you make, you say times 125%. You get to boost your pay by 25%. And that's not listed publicly. So if you're just a brick agent out in the field, been there for 6-7 years, you're pulling down around $135,000 a year. You have 39 days off between leave and sick leave. You have 11 federal holidays. Now we're up to 50 paid days off a year. You get 3 hours a week to work on your mental health and your physical health on the clock. And then I used to have this joke with another agent. He said, you have AL, which is annual leave. That's vacation time. You have SL, which is sick leave. And then you have JL. I said, what's JL? He goes, it means just leave, because that's what happens every Friday. Federal Friday, everybody's out of the office by 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon.
See, part of me is okay with federal employees not paying attention.
Sort of of two minds there.
Yeah, right? Yeah. But there's so many of them that somebody's always in there. Okay, let's see. Where am I going now? I got to get back to this. We got off on the side street there. Sorry. Thanks for indulging me. Okay, back to cash. Here we go.
Go through years of investigations, years of political maneuvering, and years of cover-up to get the American people what they deserve. And that's what I'm going to give them on everything.
Yeah. And if somebody says, how long is that going to take? You know, we always see investigations in Washington that end up in blue ribbon commissions, and it doesn't seem like anything comes from it. Do you think?
In other news, a 2025 DOGE inspired initiative is causing a stir with
now. Hold on a second. Hold on. Kudos though. Kudos that you made it look like a news segment, right?
That was. She said DOGE, which is
right. And it says, look at the bottom there. I don't know if you can see there. It says USA 6 News channel instead of Fox News channel.
Ah,
how crafty.
She's not blonde though, so it's definitely not Fox.
Oh, I have a theory on these coins. Like if you buy them like on eBay, I don't know if it's this one in particular. No, it was just a regular Trump one. It was, and this was like before the tariff stuff, but it was like $2 for a coin. And I thought, come on now, that's ridiculous. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute, it's on a boat, because you know how like you track your purchases, and then it's like all in Chinese. You're like, oh hell, it's on a boat. It's literally on a slow boat from China. I think all of those things. This is tinfoil territory. If they're coming from China, they know they're going to a Trump supporter. What's inside those devices? That's
fentanyl.
That's what. Oh shit.
Actual prosecutions will come from some of this stuff.
I think from some of this stuff, when we go back and look at things like the pipe bomber case, the cocaine in the White House, January 6th, and Crossfire Hurricane, the prosecutorial decisions will lay at the Department of Justice, but we are rigorously investigating them, and I think we've developed some great leads. And I also think we're not going to wait for any blue ribbon commissions. That's up to Congress. If they want to do that, that's totally fine. They're a coordinate branch of government. But we've got answers coming on all these matters.
Do you want to say anything, Steve?
No, I think he's assigned responsibility, I guess, to the DOJ properly. I don't know why they're investigating cocaine in the White House, though. That just seems like a waste of time and resources.
Should anyone investigate that? Maybe the Secret Service? Anybody?
Already did and didn't do a good job, and the DOJ shut it down.
That's true. That's true. This is just asking for your gut opinion. How do you think the relationship is between Kash Patel and Pam Bondi at this point?
He told me that he's very close with her.
Recently?
When he got named to be the FBI director.
Okay, but I wonder, was that before or after the empty binder?
Yeah, I don't know, but I haven't really been keeping up with the palace intrigue.
Yeah, okay, just curious. All right, here we go.
You promise?
I do.
Your deputy before he became deputy.
Wait, what did he just promise again? All the investigations and stuff?
Rigorous investigations.
Okay. Yeah, all right, you promised. Okay.
He said this.
Like many people, I believe the FBI.
All right, so this is January 12th, Dan Bongino show. Here we go.
Yeah, I knows the identity of this pipe bomber on January 6th, 4 years ago, and just doesn't want to tell us because it was an inside job.
Why didn't they find the bomber, the pipe bomber? You know, they know who the pipe bomber is. The FBI knows who it is.
Does the FBI know who it is?
The FBI, under me and Dan Bongino's leadership, has reestablished that investigations of great public importance that almost blew up the DNC and RNC in Washington, D.C., an area in which then Vice President Harris was in the vicinity of, is something that needs to be answered. And
so far, what are you thinking of this answer there, Steve?
He didn't answer the question, or he's going a long way of saying we don't know who the pipe bomber is. But in light of the revelations that the Crossfire Hurricane cases were being buried one way or another, who's to say that they don't know who it is and they just haven't let the director know?
Right.
And we learned that FBI leadership in the prior administration slow rolled and basically shut that investigation off. So we turned it on, and we have some great leads. And Dan is actually going to talk about that when he does Fox and Friends tomorrow.
Okay. You don't want to give us a little something?
Brett's like, look,
Ponzi scheme.
Don't promote the next show. Promote this one. That's what he's saying. Okay. Yeah. Ponzi scheme. Okay. What was it? The Ponzi scheme of accountability? What was
credibility?
It? Credibility. Sorry. The vodka's starting to talk.
Can't get ahead of everybody.
All right. What did you make of your predecessor's walk on the beach with the shells 8647? Can
we just agree up front that James Comey is a piece of garbage? Can we establish
Yes.
that?
Well, we could establish it. And look, I'll make you laugh. James Comey is 6'8". So any crowd of people he stands in, he looks like a giant middle finger.
There is not one person that's been associated with the FBI that I've had a conversation with where James Comey comes up that's had anything good to say about this man.
The people that loved him, that he brought on, that surrounded him throughout leadership, were referred to by insiders in the FBI. We called them the College of Cardinals.
Oh, nice. I love that.
You know, the FBI is bigger than any leader it's ever had or ever will have. And James Comey is a private citizen, and he can walk around the beach and talk about seashells and Crayola crayons for all I care about, and talk about how we're the conspiracy theorists. But I just remind the American people.
I'm sorry, that's the cash that I was so excited that was a part of the Trump administration. Anyway.
One thing. When that man was a leader of the FBI, he perpetrated the largest criminal conspiracy, packaged political information from overseas, took it to a federal FISA court, and illegally surveilled a political opponent. So I won't be lectured on how to run this FBI from that man.
Well, James Comey was just on talking about all of that, the seashells and everything, and he also talked about you.
Obviously, you start with the fact that the guy has literally nothing in his entire adult life that prepares him for this role, and so that's deeply concerning to start with. In a way, I kind of a little bit sorry for the guy. He's barked at the FBI nonsense for years, and now he not only caught the car, he's got to drive the car, and so that is a daunting task for him. I hope he lets the career people do their jobs, but they've already forced out a bunch of good career people and sent a chill through the organization.
Okay, hold on. Let me ask you, former FBI agent Steve Friend, would it bother you, and take cash out of it, if someone came in without any experience with the FBI whatsoever and then was suddenly leading it? Do you have a thought on that? I'm trying to remove yourself from it being Cash and Dan.
Oh, I think historically the FBI director has not come from the inside.
Oh, okay.
The only ones that were in recent were Louis Freeh had been an agent for a few years, but he had left and gone on to become a federal prosecutor.
Interesting. That was under Clinton, right?
Yes.
Louis Freeh? Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. All right. So here we go. But boy, could you be more condescending?
Well, look, I'll be condescending and pedantic. This just like same way to James Comey, because he said that literally Cash Patel doesn't have anything in his background. Yeah, it's not written in literature. You're saying that as an author, as of romance novels? No, I think if you want to do anything that's been part of literature, I guess Cash Patel wrote a book called Government Gangsters, in which he talked about investigating people like James Comey. So I guess he does literally have something in his background that would justify him being the FBI director.
James Comey. I mean, he's such a man-child. It's pathetic.
He's an action figure for Biden Harris.
Yeah,
that's
nice.
James Comey.
If he wants to come after me, no problem. I've been living rent-free in that guy's head for years, and that's just a bonus. Do you know how many copycats we've had to investigate?
Hold on. Again, I have to point this out. He just went toe-to-toe with James Comey. And then what do? They do the wide shot where his feet are dangling 2 feet off the ground again. I don't like it. I hate it. The end.
As a result of that beachside venture from the former director.
Is that right?
Do you know how many agents I've had to take offline from chasing down child sex predators, fentanyl traffickers, terrorists? Because everywhere across this country, people are popping up on social media and think that a threat to the life of the president of the United States is a joke and they can do it because he did it. That's what I'm having to deal with every single day. I'd like to know the number.
What's that? So,
he said, do you want to know how many I've had? And he was sort of this rhetorical flourish. I would like to know the actual number.
Okay, but yeah, I'm with you 100%. But also, to accentuate a point that you made earlier, when we were going through that crazy-ass hierarchy, should it be reaching Cash Patel's desk at this point? Okay.
No. Now, look, it is
unless it's if it's a credible threat against the president of the United States, then
credible threat. But also, it would be a sensitive investigative matter because he's a high-profile individual, a political figure. So that would necessitate some cooperation between FBI and DOJ, and there would be briefings on up the chain of command to a certain extent. But no, the director himself would not be reassigning people from working fentanyl cases to go and talk to James Comey about his First Amendment protected activity.
Oh wait, okay, so you don't even see James Comey's post as How big of an issue is that to you? Because I look at that as almost I think it's a threat to it. At least warrants a visit with the Secret Service and spend a day down there. Are you saying that maybe it's not worth that?
Because there's a well-founded doctrine of First Amendment protected activity. The FBI is on point of saying that they do not investigate people for First Amendment protected expression and speech in any way. And posting a picture of 8647, as much as you might find it abhorrent, does not run afoul of First Amendment protection. I mean, there's Supreme Court doctrine on this. You go back to an individual. It was a decision that came out. He was opposed to the Vietnam War. He said, if you draft me and give me an M16, the first thing I'm going to do is turn around and point it at LBJ. And the Supreme Court said that is First Amendment protected activity because it was not specific. There was not a time. It was not a direct call for violence. It was heated rhetoric and heated language. And that's the way that political speech is supposed to be in the country. I don't like James Comey either. I think this is probably a pretty good test of my principles on this matter. I'm a free speech absolutist, and the FBI should not be doing that. Now, there are ways you can go after James Comey that are actually illegal, and there are ongoing criminal conspiracies in which he's been a part of that he should probably be sitting in solitary confinement over. I would like to see resources devoted towards that, particularly not just limited to Russiagate. I would say that the off-the-books honeypot scheme that he ran during the Trump campaign in 2016, where he took agents and had them infiltrate Trump's campaign, make themselves appear sexually available to dig up dirt, and ran that off the books. And there's been multiple whistleblowers that have come forward on that. That's an ongoing conspiracy because he promoted those two agents. They're still in the FBI, still in the federal government, benefiting from having participated in that. I would argue that that's an ongoing conspiracy. So there is no statute of limitations because it's still ongoing.
Okay, I've got 3 questions, and I'm going to forget 2 of them here. The Supreme Court case back in the 60s, I'm not going to ask you to litigate that here from memory, but how is that not a specific threat? Like, if I am drafted, I'm going to kill the president?
His direct quote, he was speaking at an event, and he said, if I ever got an M16 in my hands, the first thing I would do is point it at LBJ. So there were qualifiers of if and would, and he doesn't have the means. He doesn't actually have the M16 in his hand.
Okay, but hold on a second. Here's a follow-up. This is my second question. So far, so good. Did that guy get drafted? Do we know? Because that almost seems like, okay, you're protected from having to be drafted.
That's a pretty good counter technique. That's great.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so then my next question to you, going back to the seashells, this is where we are in America. Let's talk about seashells. What if in the beach, Comey had taken a picture that said, the president should be killed, right? Like, what if that's what it said in English? The president should be assassinated. And that picture was posted. Should anything happen to Comey, or is that also a free speech issue?
That's free speech protected. Should. It's an expression of opinion. We actually had the example of that.
Should. Should. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The libertarian in New Hampshire, where the agents came to his house, he had said something to that effect online, and he recorded it. It was pretty viral last year. And that's, I mean, look, the FBI, law enforcement in general, they're not the jerk police. You have the ability to be a jerk and say nasty things. As long as there isn't a direct call for violence, the FBI should not be involved.
Okay, so one more hypothetical here as far as messaging in the sand goes. If it had said, well, I mean,
if it had said something like,
I will,
I want,
you to.
I want someone to go to the White House right now and murder Donald Trump.
Oh, God.
Right? That's getting close, but it even is a I want element to it, right?
Man, that's interesting.
You need a level of specificity to actually, in the alleged land of the free, to charge somebody for their speech.
Well, besides, there's just not that many seashells to spell all that out. I think that's our problem there.
You need to give grid coordinates.
Having to pull my agents and analysts off because he thought it was funny to go out there and make a political statement.
The 86-47, the president.
I think this goes back to your hierarchy point. Why is he making determinations of the minutia of which agents are doing what, right?
Exactly.
I mean, exactly. Now,
he could have it
you
easily.
got Sachs and Dix to do that, right?
He could have it easily reported up to him. Hey, how many people did we wind up devoting to this? Because that's a personnel issue. I need to know that.
Right.
And it's high profile. I think that would be valuable information, but he should not be saying move Bob from financial crimes over to talking to James Comey.
Because if you take what was it, 5 steps inside the building, about 11 outside. I mean, we're 16 steps. That's okay.
Then said that he believed it was an assassination message. On assassination attempts, I did ask the president on the Middle East trip about this. Is there frustration on your part? Will we?
All right. This is where I am more pissed off about anything that's been going on with the FBI. Is we need more information about Butler in Florida, and I get the standard line about the Florida assassination attempt. It's still going through the courts, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of questions that have come up around Butler, Pennsylvania, and what the private investigator came up with, suggesting that it was a larger scheme. I still haven't had a satisfactory answer of the cell phone pings near the FBI building for Thomas Crooks. Anyway, let's see this here.
Get transparency? Will we know the bottom line story?
It's very interesting because we have great people. I think Pam is incredible. I think Cash is incredible. I'm relying on my people to tell me what it is. You know, we have deep-seated craziness in this country, and I'm relying on my people. And so far they're good, but so far and in this case, the Secret Service, they tell me it's fine.
That's as close as Donald Trump is going to get to saying, I don't trust the opinion of the people that work for me. Would you agree with that? I mean,
yes, yeah, and he shouldn't. He shouldn't. This
it's a little hard to believe,
right? I'm with you, Donald Trump.
Be honest with you, okay? It's a little bit hard to believe as I get that throbbing feeling.
It sounds like he wants more about at least the Butler guy that we don't know a lot about. Will we know a lot more about him? Is there more to know?
I don't know that there's more to know.
Okay. I'm going to do my best to not interrupt as much as my brain is telling me to interrupt this answer. But this is going to be, I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be at least one more stoppage and rewind. But right there, I don't know that there's more to know. Okay. All right.
But you're going to know everything we know. And that.
Do you believe that, Steve? Do you think we will ever know what the FBI knows about Thomas Crooks?
You will not know what the FBI knows. You might wind up knowing what Cash Patel knows because they haven't told them.
Okay. Now we're okay. All right.
It's the other thing we did. We take assassination attempts, and especially of the president of the United States, extremely seriously. And we don't feel that the American people have been given the information they need on that. And we're digging through the files and we're getting them a more robust picture of what happened and whether or not there were any connections.
I get all that. And I also understand investigations underway and there's potential prosecutions for people who are living, but he's dead. Mm-hmm. And we knew a lot more about a lot of different people than we know about that guy. And you know, there's people that circulate all kinds of stuff, that it was an inside job or there was foreign influence.
Okay. And I'm asking sincerely, Steve, since you're the one on the line with me here, am I being too sensitive when Brett Baer suggests, hey, some people think it might have been an inside job, and then the immediate reaction from Cash Patel is very dismissive? I did not appreciate that. Am I being too sensitive at reacting to that? Let me play it one more time, and then I want you to answer that.
A lot of different people than we know about that guy. And, you know, there's people that circulate all kinds of stuff, that it was an inside job or there was foreign influence.
Come on. Don't do that.
It is a little patronizing because I think that the circumstances around Butler entirely could lead to a reasonable person to come to that conclusion.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Or whatever. Can we say that it's not that?
And that's a great example of people looking for things where things don't exist.
You weren't as definitive as that 60 seconds ago.
He should have been more assertive originally and said that everything's done. but there's no expectation of privacy. There's no ongoing prosecution. Crooks is dead, so they should all be out in the open at this point. I think I've told you before, my strong speculation is that Crooks fit the bill of the typical person that the FBI goes after and entraps into a terrorism plot. And I think the hubris of the FBI, which has been on display at length for years with all of their terrorism entrapments, is that they always assume that the person they have targeted will follow all the breadcrumbs until they can spring the trap. And they never, even for a moment, consider that even though the person's not within arm's reach of them, that they might just take a detour. I think Crooks fits that bill up until the point where he might have just taken a detour and gone and perpetrated a successful assassination attempt. Donald Trump didn't die, but he got the shot. He hit him in the head.
He killed a man.
And to me, the ultimate concern after it all was over was that the deputy director of the FBI at the time, Paul Abate, told Congress that this was being investigated as potential domestic terrorism because they'd learned their lesson after the Capitol baseball shooting. Because at the Capitol baseball shooting, the FBI concluded that the Bernie Sanders supporter who asked where are the Republicans and went and tried to shoot all the Republicans, that wasn't an assassination attempt. That was suicide by cop. Our bad. So we're going to investigate this as domestic terrorism, which I think might have been cover for the fact that there already was a domestic terrorism investigation up on Crooks and would have justified having the case open, and they would have made it classified and not able to talk about it.
Okay. All right. I hope I make sense here in my request. So, just so that there's no ambiguity here, you're suggesting, correct me if I'm wrong, that inside the FBI there was contact with Crooks, that there was this plan in place that they were going to grab him at the last minute or what have you. Correct?
I think I'm speculating. I think that it fits the bill of, but not the assassination. I think they had a plan for him to do something else.
Okay. So here's my question for you. Okay, well then that might change my question a little bit here. Do you think then if there was contact between the FBI and Matthew Crooks, do you think that they were telling Crooks that we want you to assassinate Donald Trump? Or are you saying that they had him groomed for something completely different and Crooks said, oh yeah, I'll show them, I'll go and shoot him instead?
I think the latter is more likely, that they were setting him up to perpetrate some sort of an attack.
Okay.
Because when they set up the attack, what you have to understand is they don't arm the person. They don't give them a functional weapon. They might give them a weapon that's had the firing pin manipulated in some way, so that it is impossible for them to take a shot. Or they'll give them a fake bomb that is impossible to explode. It lacks the necessary ingredients. This guy got a legitimate shot off because he took his dad's deer rifle.
So you and I have discussed on previous shows in the archives. Everything's pinned to the top here of my profile if y'all want to go check out all the time Steve Friend has been on. But one of the things we've talked about is the way the FBI goes about setting up I love the stat. I try to bring it up every time you're on. 99% or 96% of all domestic terrorist cases, investigations, are all connected to the FBI, being the catalyst for the plot. Is that kind of...
Yeah, Project Salam said that it's in excess of 90%. I think it's around 92%. The individual who gets arrested was not predisposed or capable of actually perpetrating an attack on their own.
The FBI found them and was able to groom them and do the whole thing. So here's my question. You don't have to necessarily... Well, I mean, if you want to... Let's just say that is what was happening with Crooks. And let's just say that it wasn't... The end game wasn't to assassinate Trump. It was just for the FBI to justify their existence, make this kid out to be the bad guy. Here's my question for you. In something like that, can you direct us to how high up the chain would a plot like that go? Would it only be in the local situation, or would it go inside the Hoover building? Like where are we on the hierarchy of FBI? Should I get out of the local office and go to the Hoover?
If this is a high profile within the office itself, you're working on a domestic terrorism case, the demand for those is pretty high. So it would be briefed to your special, your supervisory special agent. They would know about your big case that you're working, because likely you're involving informants and undercovers, all the way up to the assistant special agent in charge, perhaps even the special agent in charge.
So the local stuff.
Yes, it would all be within the field office. Now, at headquarters, program manager, maybe within the unit chief, up to the unit chief, would be aware. But that would probably be about it.
So the program manager in the Hoover building talks to the dicks.
The program manager mostly liaises with the supervisory special agent and the assistant special agent in charge, and the agents themselves, because the program manager is basically the funding. They say, I need some money for this thing I'm doing. Do we have the resources for it? And that's how they manage the program.
Okay. Our government is so big and so unnecessarily big. It makes me ill. All right, here we go.
In that specific case, since that individual is dead, we are able to say a lot more, unlike the merchant case in New York, which is ongoing.
Say it.
Whether or not there are any connections. We have definitively given that information over.
Director Patel, stand by if you would.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Sean.
They had to take a break. Oh, and then Sean Hannity has to get his plug in there. Okay, so that was the majority of it. There's another. Anything you want to address before we play the last few minutes of this interview?
No, let's keep it on rolling.
All right, let's go here. Kash Patel, Brett Baer, part 2.
Welcome back to the FBI Academy at Quantico, Virginia. Joining us again. Welcome back to the FBI Academy.
Sorry, I was trying to zoom in here.
Joining us again, FBI Director Kash Patel. You were recently up on Capitol Hill answering questions.
When should we expect this FY25 spend plan for the FBI? Have you seen it? Have you reviewed it? When will we get it?
I'll get you an answer, ma'am. I don't have a timeline on that.
Okay, hang on. Let me zoom in here. Okay. He doesn't have a timeline. Boy, Patty Murray just loves the Trump appointees.
It was due last week by law.
I understand.
And your answer is you just understand. You're not going to follow the law?
My answer is that I am following the law, and I'm working with my interagency partners to do this.
It is budget season.
Yeah.
And should you have laid out a budget by then to Congress? Because everybody is looking to how much you're going to spend and how much they're going to take from perhaps you to make this all work.
Do I have a budget at the FBI? Sure, of course I do. But the Office of Management Budget at the White House sets the budget for the United States government. And so if they have a budget, which we agree with, they need to roll that out. And they're doing so on their own timeline and working with Congress on that. What I'm telling the American people is that we will be stewards of the taxpayer dollars no matter what budget we are given, and focus on these priorities: crushing violent crime, defending the homeland, and fierce organizational accountability. And we'll make it happen. We're not the guys running around on private jets. And somebody maybe in Congress should ask for how many flights on a private jet Director Comey took, or my predecessor Director Wray took, and how many personal trips they took. I know they want to take pot shots at me, but I've been working nonstop on this job, including pretty much every single weekend. And somebody should ask the tens of millions of dollars that were wasted on personal junkets by prior FBI directors before lecturing me on a budget for the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
But you have a good sense from the White House what it looks like. And are you going to be able to operate in that parameter?
I am. We are in a very good position.
When do you want everyone out of the Hoover building?
Did you want to comment on that?
Well, he's asking for $500 million more. So I don't know how comfortable he feels about operating with a restricted budget. He's been pictured at multiple UFC events. So, and with Alexander Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals, and shaking hands with the FIFA director, and hanging out with Wayne Gretzky, and visiting his girlfriend in Nashville.
Yeah. You know what? If I hung out with Wayne Gretzky, I would say, you know what? How much input did you have? Because this is so good, bro. This is really good. Okay. Sorry. Hang on a second. By the way, go Oilers. Okay. Sorry.
You say you want to move out of that building. Where would the new headquarters be?
I can tell you that we are in the process of moving out. We've just worked out the...
Let me ask you this. Is there anything that you know of, Steve, regarding the Hoover building? Is it as decrepit as... Well, I think he's about to explain.
Final logistics to begin that process. And we are actually in line with keeping the American taxpayer dollars on mission, shuttering about 6 different offices the FBI has in the DC area, and we're moving to our new location within the DC area, and that process has already started.
I thought we were supposed to leave the swamp. So we're gonna have, again, the partial truth where he said that he was gonna shut down the Hoover Building and turn it into a museum of the deep state. I mean, that's a little bit of hyperbole. He's gonna shut down the Hoover Building and move all of the same people who have been there to a brand new shiny building.
Which is what Trump said on the campaign trail a couple of years ago. I remember when he said it, I was like, what? No, a state-of-the-art building for the FBI. I don't know. No.
Which is where? Maryland?
We're staying in Washington, D.C., right next to our partners at the Department of Justice, and we're getting out of the Hoover Building. I have cargo nets holding up the cement structures of the exterior of the Hoover Building because it catches falling cement and prevents it from hitting someone in the head.
Okay, that seems like a problem. I don't want my federal employees dodging chunks of cement.
That's why the cargo nets are there.
Okay.
I'm not making that up. Why no one in the past decided to address that standard or lack of standard and make that building unsafe is beyond me, but we're addressing it.
So you're going to leave that building and then go to another building next to Homeland Security?
Next to the Department of Justice.
Justice, got it.
Because we have to, this is a great point that I think people overlook. We are a component of the Department of Justice. Moving us an hour and a half outside of town. Every morning, you know what me and the deputy do? We walk across the street to brief the Attorney General.
I wish he hadn't have said that out loud.
I have a problem.
Uh-oh. Oh, hold on. Oh, okay. Sorry. I was just going to comment. Please don't talk about your daily routine, Cash. But anyway, go ahead. What are you saying?
It's back to responsibilities. I mean, what is he briefing the Attorney General on cases? Because again, not his responsibility. And he's talking about moving the FBI headquarters across the street from the Department of Justice because the FBI has to work with the DOJ to prosecute cases. No cases are investigated in the FBI headquarters building. It is management. There's a Washington field office that's in Washington, D.C. that investigates crime and national security matters in Washington, D.C. It's relatively close to the Hoover Building where the agents that investigate cases go to work at, and it's called WFO, Washington Field Office. They would go to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Department of Justice. Why do we have to conflate DOJ and FBI management?
And I think maybe the counter to that, I didn't say this is the right answer, but the counter to that might be, you know what? Are we doing anything in the federal government at that level the right way? The way it's supposed to be done anymore on any level? You could say this about any department. Doesn't make it right. And you want to see everything steer back constitutionally the way it's set up to be. But man, it just seems like more of the same, right? Okay.
The Deputy Attorney General and the payday are the most pressing matters of the day. If we leave, how are we going to do that on a daily basis?
What's the thing that keeps you up at night?
The CCP, for a whole host of reasons we haven't even talked about, their cyber espionage campaign, what they're doing undersea, what Russia's doing overhead in terms of space, and their cyber intrusion capabilities like Salt Typhoon. They have made wildly successful penetrations into our telecommunications infrastructure. And what they do is they suck up our information, Brett, and this is what keeps me up at night. They're playing the long game. The fentanyl production by the CCP, I firmly believe, is their way.
What a terrible edit. So I think they're going to just talk here about fentanyl again. But real quick, Steve, do you have any insight as to... okay, let me ask you this. He just talked about the data that China has. Do you think, and it's a completely unfair question, do you think China has more information about Americans over the FBI?
I know that the Chinese have my information because they hacked into OPM when I was an FBI employee and stole like millions of employees' information, our SF-86, which is basically everything about me in order to get employed. And in response to that, the FBI gave me LifeLock for a year.
Okay.
The threat is real.
You know, when you take your garbage cans out to the curb, how far down the road are you looking, bro?
You know,
and who are you more concerned about? The Chinese who have all your information, or your government who turn their back on you forever?
Oh, the latter. The number one threat to Americans is by far weaponized government. Number two is so far back in the rearview mirror, it's over the horizon. I mean,
gotcha.
Perimeter checks every night.
Of killing tens of thousands of military-aged men and women in the United States of America. They are wiping out generations of Americans that could come here and be an FBI agent.
All right, so let's just talk to the future here. How do you see this? The job, is it different than you thought it was coming in? How do you look at it big picture?
Look, there's two ways I look at it. One, you're talking to a first-generation Indian kid whose parents fled genocide, and their son's now the director of the FBI. Only in America. Literally only in America. So I wanted to inspire people to come to places like this and train with us and serve this country. The other thing that I want people to take away from that is there is no job on God's green earth that prepares you to lead an agency or department. There isn't. Anyone who tells you otherwise is flat out lying or being politically preposterous. And I learn every single day. I learn from the leadership team. I have folks in there around my table every morning who come from so many different walks of life, people I disagree with on a daily basis. And I'm so glad that they're in that room because they are the ones helping me make these decisions. What we won't stand for is people turning around on social media and attacking folks who are doing the job. We will.
Okay. So, well, should I let that, you want me to let that answer play out?
Stand up for them. We will also
okay.
out anyone who violates their oath of office at the FBI.
Okay, cool. So, Steve, 4 months in, I don't know, maybe 3 for cash after confirmation, so on. Give me a letter grade for Kash Patel as director of the FBI at this point. Are you prepared to do that?
That's a tough one. No, actually, it's not F.
Oh.
Complete fail.
Wow.
I go back to Maria Bartiromo. That was the acknowledgement that this effort to retake the FBI was a complete failure.
Wow.
I was on your team and wanted this to work with Director Patel, with Deputy Director Bongino, but the effort is lost, and we need to have a tactical withdrawal, and then we need to dissolve the entire agency. That is the only answer at this point. He's sitting at the table with his leadership meetings with people who are, by his own definition, they disagree with him on so many things, and that's great. Then it's not a functional management structure at all. And you can tell that the one thing he doesn't really want to deal with at this point, were by his own words, were people on social media expressing their opinions about bad performance by the FBI. So the Twitter timeline for the FBI director is directly impacting what his actions are on a day-to-day. It's not effective. The FBI is still operating the exact same way that you and I have talked about over multiple episodes on these deep dives. These things are all still going on. We've put a fresh coat of paint, and we're saying that it's a brand new bureau, and it's just not true. And the opportunity was there, and they just didn't want to take it. And at this point, the overhaul that was necessary hasn't happened. The people that had already boxed up their things and were ready for the hammer to drop have unboxed their things. They know it's not going to happen. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
It's exactly what I said this morning on Pat Gray Unleashed over at the Blaze. I don't want that to be true. I was the guy who was, hashtag defund the FBI, and then Kash Patel comes along and wait, maybe we can steer this ship back around. And then when I asked you for a letter grade, my grade was, let's give him a C and then check in with me in a couple months and see if I'm still at that middle of the road area. But you're saying a full out fail, huh? Okay, so let me ask you this. I wasn't going to ask you this next question until we got done with the Bongino thing, which I still want to go through with you. Is that cool? Do you have time to go through Bongino with us? Okay, cool. But let me go ahead and ask you this. We agreed early on in the conversation that the FBI was absolutely dirty before Trump was in there. This has been institutional rot hell, since Hoover. So at this point in time, the FBI, as of right now, compared to, let's just go back 6 months, just get us into the Biden administration. Better, worse, or the same FBI?
Operationally the same, but overall worse because they have the pom-pom waivers online and in media who are saying it's ours now, everything is great, and we're going to overlook the things that are bad because it's ours now. Or they're trying to make cases that are patently ridiculous, like your Julie Kellys out there who are saying that the Epstein list doesn't matter and it should matter. You just need to move on. It's our toy, it's our plaything now. So we're not going to be critical of it. I have been from the beginning balls and strikes. There's nothing that I say on social media that I wouldn't tell Dan Bongino or Kesh Patel to their face.
Yeah, no, I believe.
I would tell them, director, your people are claiming credit for work they're not doing. That's a problem.
Yeah,
that's not. There's no emotion to it at all. But now there's an emotion to it, and there's an actual effort afoot to mobilize support online, as opposed to just doing the job that you were appointed to do, and that was to course correct in a major fashion very quickly, or turn it into a museum for the deep state.
Boy, it's almost like Obamacare. It's like, well, if we control it, then it's okay that it sucks. That's kind of what it felt like when you just said, well, now it's our toy. Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's go to this morning on the curvy couch. We've got Fox and Friends interviewing Dan Bongino, number 2 in charge of the FBI. So let's now go through that here and get your take on what he had to say this morning.
All right, the FBI is now re-examining high-interest cases that went unsolved in the Biden era. That includes the 2021 D.C. pipe bombings, the 2022 leak of the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, and the cocaine that was found in the White House in 2023.
Anything you want to say at the onset here?
The leak is not illegal.
Okay, the leak is not illegal. All right, here we go.
To discuss this and more is FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino. Dan, great to see you on the couch again.
Yeah, welcome back, Fox.
Absolutely.
Good to see you in person. So many good memories. Great to see all of you.
First off, before we get into specifics, what did you think the job was going to be like? What is it like?
You know, the biggest lifestyle change for me has been family-wise. I mean, we already went through this with my time in the Secret Service. But, you know, when the president called and asked if I would take the job, you know, you can't tell your audience for years, go out and do stuff, talk is cheap. And then when the opportunity comes to do stuff, I didn't mean me, you know, I meant you. It's kind of you're a fraud. I mean, you don't sound like a fraud, you are one. So it was a lot. It's been tough on the family. People ask me all the time, you know, do you like it? I say, no, I don't. But the president asked me to do this to like it. You know, nobody likes going into an organization like that and having to change things and make big, bold changes. But, you know, I was at one of our facilities yesterday down in Winchester, and a woman who worked there, very nice, said, you know, I used to watch your show. I miss you. I said, you know, I miss me too. You know, part of you, part of you dies a little bit when you see all this stuff from behind the scenes.
You're doing this for country, so we appreciate that, and we thank you.
Anything yet? Oh, that was a reassuring little pat there from Brian, I think. Coming up. I don't know. No? Okay.
Just very morning showy.
Yeah. And I can't imagine being in his shoes, Dan Bongino. You talk about a lifestyle change from just hanging out and speaking your mind with your audience to, oh, crap. Now I'm a mouthpiece. Or no, I don't want to say mouthpiece. Now I'm representing the government. Okay, cool.
Thank you. And we're excited to find out, to roll back the curtain and find out what's deep in the FBI. We have so many questions about those 3 cases we just mentioned. Y'all are doing a deep dive into this. What's the latest on those investigations?
So the moment Cash and I swore in, we realized that the first thing we had to do is rebuild public trust. This is your FBI.
Okay, so far, what are we grading that? No. I want to revisit something. I called you yesterday, whenever I talked to you on the phone, Steve. And this media blitz, you don't think it was just Fox calling the FBI and saying, hey, we'd love to have you on our shows. You guys care to join us? You think there's something deeper going on behind the scenes as far as what prompted this little media blitz the last couple of weeks?
I think there's been a lot of criticism, particularly, I mean, I think the original Bartiromo interview was scheduled and planned because they needed to get out there and sort of represent the brand, but it did not come off well enough, particularly when they said that Epstein killed himself. I think they lost a lot of people who were outspoken big names, and now they're kind of having to do some mop-up duty as a result of that.
Do you think someone encouraged this media blitz here?
That, or maybe they just knew that the big boss likes to watch Fox and Friends.
That's what I was getting at. So are you of the opinion that Donald Trump himself?
Yeah, I am, and I think that the Epstein list is the one, or I'm sorry, the Epstein killed himself is the thing that they have gotten people so upset about.
Okay.
That they have to do cleanup duty, and they're adamant also to just take their lumps on it, because people so many people will just move on and forget about the other things, the things that they're promising, and they ultimately don't deliver on them. But he killed himself. They lost so much support for it. But I think that they've made a calculated decision that we'll take our lumps, we're going to stick to this, and then hopefully just sort of flood the zone with promises about other things, about SCOTUS leak and coronavirus and Crossfire Hurricane, so that maybe at the end of the day, we have enough black in our ledger to overcome the red.
It's impossible to get into somebody's mind, and I'm going to still ask you to do that. If you're President Trump and you're watching these interviews, how much faith do you think he has in Kash Patel and Dan Bongino at this point? Any idea at all, or do you not want to speculate?
I think he's got a lot of confidence in them, because he's just allowing them to sort of operate. We haven't really heard the president weigh in on the FBI, and he's certainly never had hesitancy to criticize his own people.
That's true. That's a great answer. That's probably the best indication that he is absolutely understanding of the whole process that they're going through. But it's still interesting, though. Your other theory is interesting too. That, hey, we're getting killed on this. Get out there, talk to. And do you think it's a coincidence they went to Fox News for these interviews? All three of these now. All three of them.
I don't know if Jen Psaki would go as well or as friendly. I think Brett Baer in particular, he was the last sit-down one-on-one interview with an FBI director that was Christopher Wray. That was Brett Baer from Fox. Bartiromo sitting down with the two of them was sort of a different dynamic. And then Bongino going on the morning show, I think. I mean, it sounds a little cold, but Bongino's personal profile is much larger than Director Patel's, right? I mean, he's famous. He's a podcaster, right? He can't get the primetime sit down. He's going to outshine the boss within the agency. So that's got to go to the director. And if anything, this maybe kind of makes Bongino look a little bit softer.
Because he's on the curvy couch.
He's on the curvy couch. He can't be talking about weak people and slamming his fist
I could
down.
never do a show on a set like that. I got so much shit strewn all over the place. I'm too messy. It would not go well.
It's not mine. I tell the employees every day, you don't own it, you don't own it, I don't own it. It's like being the center fielder for the Yankees. That'll live with you forever, but you don't own the Yankees. It's a proud franchise. The place has taken a reputational hit. There is zero question about it. There were a lot of bad actors. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. So we had to fix it and rebuild public trust. One of the ways to do it is these cases of significant public interest that matter. We had 2 pipe bombs planted on January 6th. I mean, we were told by partisan actors out there this was the insurrection, the world was going to fall apart, and no one seemed to show any interest in this case. The second we got in, I put a team on it, and I said, I want answers on this. And I'm pretty confident that we're closing in on some suspects. The reason, by the way, I use social media with these cases, I'm trying to communicate on social media, is nothing's by accident, guys. I do nothing by accident. Every time I put a tweet out on it, we get tips. We got a fascinating tip.
The viral 30-second pink salt.
Hold on. Y'all pay attention. Grab a pen and paper. I'll wait. We got a fascinating tip coming up with baking soda and sea salt,
trick
apparently.
That melts fat was actually featured on the Today Show. But for those who missed
on one of these cases.
Okay, so real quick, he's talking about, because you earlier when you were talking about Kash Patel's mentioning of social media, and I agreed with you that seems to be responding to what he's seeing out on social media. Well, here's maybe the flip side of that. This is social media, I guess, as the side of the milk carton, modern, version of that. Do you have any problem with the way Dan Bongino is using social media to generate tips for the FBI?
I don't think that. I mean it's a good explanation. There's the real reason and the right reason.
Ooh.
The right reason is, yes, we get lots of tips. The real reason is that they're trying to engage with social media because they're concerned about coming off really bad. Because is there anybody out there who's like scrolling around on Twitter right now who's like, I know who the pipe bomber is, and I wasn't going to say anything, and then I saw something from the deputy director of the FBI, and
that's fair. Damn you, Steve.
A little disingenuous.
One of the three. I don't want to say which one, but I'm
okay. So he doesn't. We're about to have. This is fascinating. We're about to have some serious reveal coming up real soon. It sounds like of one of those three. Well, I don't know which door it's behind. I can't say it right now, but he's about to give away one of them that it isn't.
Pretty confident that we're going to close out one of them, hopefully shortly. And then the cocaine in the White House.
So now I'm going to talk to you about the cocaine in the White House. So now you know the thing that we're about to reveal isn't the cocaine in the White House, because we're talking about that separately.
Which means they're about to close out one quickly, which means it's either the pipe bomb
right.
or
the
SCOTUS leak.
Yeah. And it's going to be the SCOTUS leak, right?
Because it's not
one
illegal.
that doesn't matter. Yeah.
I saw someone on social media, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. We work for you, but said, I don't care about the case. Yeah, I do. I was a Secret Service agent. A potentially hazardous material made its way into the White House. Nobody seems to know how it got there, and nobody seemed to get to investigate it fully. Like, what planet do we live on where that's not of public interest?
So you're faced with this interesting thing. I've known you since I was a kid, and I know your instinct is to swing back, but you promised that you weren't going to do that. You promised that you were going to get rid of the partisanship, and you were going to go back to being a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
You went in there, and there were some cases that were closed or still open that a lot of the public felt a little sketchy about. The first assassination attempt against President Donald Trump. It's like, is he really the guy? What happened with Epstein? Can you say with confidence, as a lot of public, you used to be their guy when it comes to podcasts, appearing on Fox News, but now as a law enforcement officer, can you say we have all the information?
Well, I'm never going to say we have all of it. And people.
Wait. That's not what your boss just said. Am I wrong? Did he not just say that? Okay, sorry.
Ask me all the time, are these.
Go ahead, Steve. What?
Whatever they know, you're going to know.
That's right. That's what. Thank you. I couldn't remember the exact verbiage. It's the vodka. Sorry. Bad host.
These cases closed, and whether they're closed administratively is irrelevant. If new tips come in, we're absolutely going to follow them, and that's why I always put out, if you have additional information, please let us know. Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on.
Hang on a second. Hold on. He's going to talk about the Epstein file, but remind me, I've got to ask you a question, a point that you made previously.
I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't.
Right.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, it was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this. We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him.
Right.
There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
So there's three
All right. Oh, hang on.
cases that you're looking at.
Okay, yeah. All right. So any thoughts on that, Steve, before I ask you my two questions?
I thought that there was no video because the cameras went out.
That I thought as well, but he just said, he made it sound like, the way I interpret it, taking that information you just said and pairing it with what he just said, is it sounds like the camera that was on his cell was out, but he's trying to say that, no, we have other cameras in the building. You're just going to have to accept those.
You going in and going out sort of cameras.
Yeah.
And again, there's no audio. and
no DNA.
Nothing in there to point to that it wasn't him. He might have died by his own hand. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily a suicide. They have yet to address that very simple thing that a lot of people have righteously brought up. This is a guy that, from what we understand, worked in influence and coercion. Who's to say that the people that he was doing that to didn't just turn around and say, it ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun, and there's people that are important to you, and unless you die by your own hand, something negative will happen to them, and you could see how that would happen.
You made a remark to me, again, I think this was off air. I can't recall. I'm sorry. You might have said this publicly. I hate to put you on the spot like this, but how big do you think this file that Dan Bongino keeps referring to is?
There's no way that it's thousands of documents. I mean, he's certainly put that forward. Like he's been in there. And look, it's small, but again, unless you know, you don't know. He's never used the vernacular for the FBI. So if I got a case, right, that wasn't mine, and I was looking through it, and I came at you, and you were my SSA, Keith, I'd be like, hey, boss.
Hold on, I gotta look. Hang on. So I'm above you. I'm not a dick, though, right? Well, I mean, that's debatable. I'm not a sat again. Okay, but I'm above you as far as the hierarchy goes. Okay, go ahead.
And you asked for a status update, or summarize this case. I would say, boss, I read through every serial in the case file. The word is serial. That's the FBI term, which to me is just more evidence. These guys are outsiders. They're not in the know on these things. You could see how the viper's nest that's around them is distracting them. And just the fact that they don't have the terminology down is just very apparent to me that they're uncomfortable with where they're at, and they could easily be manipulated.
Okay. Oh boy.
The two DC pipe bombings, the Supreme Court leak on the Dobbs decision, and the cocaine in the White House. You say one of them within a day or two, we're going to have a major break.
Well, we've got a good tip this morning. We're going to run it out. We're not going to be able to make that public, obviously.
Hang on a sec. What? You got a tip on Twitter? That's the breaking news? Oh, okay. I might have misunderstood.
Right away, because we have to make sure.
What?
Here's where it doesn't make any sense. They're going to open up the White House cocaine case after the White House has basically had a turnover 100% in staff. Are you going to locate all of the old people?
I hate Washington, D.C., man.
And, we have to go all the proper steps. What I don't want to do ever, and I've said this before, it's not an excuse. I can't say to the public enough. I put it in my tweets all the time. I'm not asking you to trust me. Nothing drives me crazy when people go, they're asking us to trust the plan. I am absolutely not. Read my tweets. I don't want you to trust me. I don't. I'd be nice.
You'll have evidence.
All I care about is results.
So let's talk about what the president wants. He clearly wants a result when he told Brett Baer on the assassination.
Okay, hang on a second. Hang on. I'm so confused now. Because I thought earlier in the conversation, I didn't catch this earlier today when I watched this. He said that we're going to be releasing some information, blah, 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 blah. And then on the which case was it? The cocaine in the White House. So we knew it was going to be either J6 pipe bomber or Dobbs leak. Okay. So now is he saying now that we got a good tip on the White House cocaine?
He's saying that it's one of the cases that they're going to reveal that we're presuming is either Dobbs or cocaine.
Okay, hang on a second. So we're supposed to believe for 4 months now that these things take time. And again, if I'm mishearing this, and that's definitely in the realm of possibilities. But if we're told for 4 months, be patient, we've got to, cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure that names aren't revealed, that shouldn't be, blah, blah, blah. Is he at the same time telling us that we got a tip this morning that we're going to reveal in the next couple of days?
I don't understand the showmanship aspect to this. Okay. Why are we doing the reveal with cliffhangers? Just give us the information.
Okay.
Assassination attempt. He's got questions on the first one. Watch.
A trick of ice water, salt, and lemon has gone viral in the
Steve
last
Harvey's
month
the
on
president?
Netflix. User report.
There's
a crazy
lot of frustration
timeline
that we still don't know about that shooter in Butler, and we don't know about his communications. Will we get transparency?
I thought it was strange. You know, the one guy had 18 cell phones. Okay, I
Right.
have a lot of cell phones, but I have like 2. You know, I call that a lot. And I think I probably make more calls than him. They live outside of Butler in a little place. Where did they get this lawyer that would represent IBM and would represent ExxonMobil?
You're the president. Can't
They
you
end up,
find out?
no, Secret Service. They tell me it's fine.
Oh my gosh. Even more so than earlier when we played this clip. Look, we've come to know a lot about his reactions over a lifetime of him. I'm sorry. That when he said they tell me it's fine, he doesn't. I'm not gonna. That's the word. Thank you. I just feel like he does not believe that at all. They tell me it's fine. No, okay.
Would represent ExxonMobil.
You're the president. Can't
They end
you
up,
find out?
no, Secret Service. They tell me it's fine. But
he never looks like that. That he stares at Brett like I know how ridiculous I'm being with these over-analyzing all these moments on these clips, but they tell me it's fine. And then he stares a hole through Brett's head, like as if that's what they tell me, Brett. Stare, and then he looks down. Oh my gosh.
They tell me it's fine. But it's a little hard to believe, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
yeah.
Okay? It's a little bit hard to believe as I get that throbbing feeling.
So Dan, the question is that a lot of people have wondered is, did this kid have help? He could not have pulled it off by himself. Was there a foreign actor? Did someone provide him with the weapons? Was there chatter online?
Well, let's be clear here. There are 2 separate parallel tracks here. Foreign actors targeting people in the United States. And it's not just the president, it's others. That is a very real track. The question is, do they intersect? The case file now, which, by the way, we are going to make another public release on this coming up. We're just kind of finishing up the product now to make sure it's tight and put together. You're going to see a lot of what you've heard about online does not exist in the case file. I'm not telling you information may not surface later. We do the PDB, the President's Daily Brief. We get the same brief, me and Cash, every morning. We have warned people out, telling them if there's something there we want to find. They have shaken every tree on this.
You mean you talked to his classmates, you talked to his family, you've talked to everyone, because they evidently they burned the body, cremated, and they cleaned the whole house out.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There are, like with the Epstein case, for example, we have a number of significantly odd abnormalities that would make a normal person go, huh? What? Mm-hmm. If Lawrence is near his bank at 4 o'clock and the bank gets robbed, but we know Lawrence reported to work afterwards and has an alibi, the fact that the bank was robbed, it's a fact that Lawrence was there, but it's not evidence that Lawrence committed the crime. Mm-hmm. Things, really, really bad things happened in this case. But when you see the report we're going to release, you'll see that not everything you've been told is true. But the president is not wrong at all. I mean, he was shot in the head. Yep. He was shot in the head, got up and screaming, fight. Of course he's going to want answers, but that's our responsibility. And nothing's ever closed, though. If new evidence surfaces, we'll be sure to get it out.
There were just things that were strange. The slope roof thing, you know, the guy was on his bicycle roaming around, never caught, never seen. Let's talk about something that's been in the news.
Any thoughts there, Steve?
No, I think we'll probably have to react to the report that they put out there. But again, it's always, are they going to disprove certain things and these questions? I think Bongino is spot on. You know, circumstantial evidence is not evidence of a crime. However, back to the Epstein list, you can die by your own hand and it's not suicide, right? So we'll see what they put out, and hopefully they do it in an expeditious fashion here.
You're going to have to pull that one out for me there a little bit. You can die by your own hand. It feels like a riddle that I'm not getting.
You can die by your own hand, but that doesn't make it suicide.
Okay. Like maybe he accidentally killed himself.
Accident would be one thing, or you actually killed yourself, but it's not suicide if you did it under the threat of force.
Okay.
If I coerced you, if I said I was going to harm your family unless you did something, let's say I kidnap your child, Keith, and I say rob the bank, or I'm going to hurt your child. You would not be charged for bank robbery.
Let me ask you this, and I don't know. A simple, quick Google, I guess, could solve this. Did Epstein have kids? I don't even. Did he have?
I don't know his
I just
personal
wondered who
blackmail.
you would threaten for him. We're gonna take what's her name?
I mean, who's to say we could make it look? We can make it worse.
Right. Right. Yeah.
News this morning, and that is Kash Patel talking about how when James Comey was on the beach and he posted that social media,
we're doing the beach again.
8647. He claims that he just happened to walk up along the beach and they saw the shells, he and his wife, and he put it on social media, says he thought it was innocent. He was the director of the FBI, but thought it was innocent. He knows what 86 means. Then Kash Patel said, now we have all these copycats, and now y'all are having to pull resources from all these serious crimes, terrorists, gang-related individuals, drug traffickers, and people who are abusing children. You're pulling them off to go research these copycats because we can't afford another assassination attempt.
I got to tell you, of all the things that have surprised me in the close to now 3 months I've been here, is the depravity of Jim Comey. This man is a disgrace to the badge, the FBI, and the country. What he's doing right now, one, going out and me taking shots at Kash. Kash doesn't belong. Kash was the chief of staff at the Department of. Kash is a patriot. Kash has served in numerous high-level roles, taking personal shots while you're on the beach, implying a threat towards the president and blaming your wife about it. And let me just add about James Comey.
Can I just a quick aside? Both Kash and Dan, the thing that they're most passionate about is this James Comey thing. just an observation.
Comey. You know, Saint Comey, who walks around there moralizing to everyone how wonderful of a human being he is. What you said is absolutely accurate. We have wasted countless man hours now running out tips to our tip line about people putting 8647 because of Jim Comey, because he cannot control himself and his emotions. He is a child. He is a big child. And let me tell you one more thing. Jim Comey, who wants you to believe, Jim Comey taking a shot at the president. Oh, look at me. I'm such a victim. The president's going after me. He's making a ton of money on this book. The only person that got prosecuted was the president. Jim Comey, we're finding stuff even now. Wait till you read the stuff that's coming out.
Does he still have loyalists in the building? Because when I hear the FBI director saying, you guys are finding boxes that are hidden. Okay, how does that happen in the Bureau?
Well, we were there a couple of weeks, and luckily there were a lot of people up there.
Now, hang on a second. Hang on. We just went through the Kash Patel thing. Did Kash say boxes?
No, he
okay,
didn't.
Hang on a second. This may be a case of, did Dan say something off air to the Curvy Couch team about Kash found boxes or something, and then Lawrence maybe is bringing it to air again? Maybe, hey,
seems like a dramatization. There's not just boxes around with case files.
What I'm getting at is, Lawrence is referencing Kash Patel talked about boxes. If I heard him correctly, I haven't heard Kash mention boxes, and I feel like this is an off-air thing, something off-air. I could be reading into this, but let's see here. And now he's putting Dan almost on the spot. Yeah, because Dan's like, there was a thing a couple of weeks ago. Now that you bring it up, that's what it feels like.
Oh, look at me. I'm such a victim. The president's going after me. He's making a ton of money on this book. The only person that got prosecuted was the president. Jim Comey, we're finding stuff even now. Wait till you read the stuff that's coming out.
Does he still have loyalists in the building? Because when I hear the FBI director saying, you guys are finding boxes that are hidden.
Oh, that was during the Bartiromo, wasn't it?
Happen in the Bureau?
I think he said that during Bartiromo. My bad.
Well, we were there a couple of weeks, and luckily there were a lot of people up there who grabbed us by the arm the minute we came in and said, thank you for being here. You know, we need to talk. There are people there who are really horrified at what happened. And there was a room, and we found.
Are you driving way less than you used to?
No,
do you have a clean driving record? Are you
No.
over 25?
Yes, I feel it too.
A lot of stuff.
A hidden room.
I wouldn't call it hidden, but hidden from us at least, and not mentioned to us. And then we found stuff in there.
I got to go back to that Bartiromo interview because Lawrence is referencing things that I just don't remember, you know?
And a lot of it's from the Comey era. And we are working our damnedest right now to declassify. And just so you know, because I get the public, I totally understand people saying, well, do it now. The process is not all the information is ours to declassify. Some is other intelligence agencies. It's not, we literally can't do it. Once that gets done and that gets out there and you read some of the stuff we found that, by the way, was not processed through the normal procedure, digitizing it, putting in FBI records. We found it in bags hiding under Jim Comey's
really
FBI.
quickly,
You're going to be
The
stunned.
shells on the beach. Can you not talk to social media?
Oh my gosh, Ainsley,
Please
stop with the beach.
Every
and
time
say,
you
y'all
do it,
take
you
this
sell
down. If you
books
see
by
anyone
Jim
posting
Comey.
this, take it down. It's a threat to the president's life. Second thing, can
Oh, she wants social. No, we've been here with social media policing speech. Ainsley, stop it.
you arrest people that post these like Comey?
We make arrest decisions based on an interaction with the Department of Justice. We're the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, not prosecution. The problem is a lot of these cases haven't been a Secret Service agent, is you're going to prove intent. And here's what you don't want. You say you arrest him and he goes, there's not a magistrate that's going to, and the guy walks out of court doing a victory.
You got to build
lap.
the right case.
You have to build a case. You need to build probable cause. I don't want to do what the left did, which is jump the gun. I mean, then you have a situation like the prior deputy.
I mean, that's a fair point too, right, Steve? I mean, we got to exercise some caution or else you're going to blow the whole case before you get in front of a judge.
I don't know what case they have.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
They're in the FBI. They do investigations of crimes. Those aren't crimes.
Okay, well, I don't know if he's talking about specifically.
Mhm.
He's not still on Comey, is he? I know Ainsley wants him to be.
That is just clickbait. It's like
Director,
conservative
prior
right
to abate Andrew McCabe, who goes back, files a lawsuit. This guy was engaged in one of the biggest scandals in American history. He got $200,000, I believe, and his pension. You have to do this the right way.
And he also got a.
Oh my gosh, Ainsley's like, what about social media? Stop.
McCabe got $700,000 plus it gives a GoFundMe account that raised over $500,000. Then Peter Strzok and Lisa Page each got over $1 million.
That's right. There are no words, man. There are no words.
So got a network contract. So he's an expert commenting on you.
Yeah, they're
what
all
is that like?
victims. Well, listen, as Lawrence said before, it's difficult for me to not be able to respond like I used to, but there'll be a day. There'll be a day. I'll be back one day, and I'm going to be sure to answer all that stuff. But that's not my job now. My job now is to put aside my partisan interests and to responsibly handle the deputy director of the FBI position. You got to remember, Brian, nothing that gets to our desk, me or Cash, is a 5 or a 6 problem. Everything's a 10. If it's a 9, someone else fixed it.
We didn't get a chance to talk about the laptop.
Say that again.
Everything it's back to what's at my desk. Is it a 5 or a 6 problem? It's a 10 problem? First of all, there's no level problems. This is just his own sort of way of expressing it. But who is bringing it to your desk?
Yeah.
And you said when you showed up, people were thanking you and they were pulling you aside and they really want to be on your team now. What's their background? What do we know about them? Well, what we do know about them is they were very unhappy with what was going on and were just ashamed by it. And they saw what would happen, and yet they kept their head down.
And then as soon as they walked in, they distracted Cash and Dan. I see what you're getting.
That the FBI held on to make sure it wasn't a factor in the election.
Well, that's another thing I wanted to address. We can't publicly talk about HR matters. We just can't. It's
illegal.
Yeah, it's you can't do it. But anyone out there who thinks we have not taken,
I think we're about due for an Ainsley social media question.
Appropriate action against political actors, they're just making that up. We can't go out and advertise this stuff, but if you think we're allowing partisanship to infiltrate the FBI and just let all that bad stuff happen, you're really just making, I don't know why you're doing it. Maybe you're trying to break up, divorce us from the people and breed mistrust, but that is not what's happening. I don't know what people think me and Cash are doing all day. I mean, I gave up everything for this. I mean, my wife is struggling. I'm not a victim. I'm not Jim Comey.
But I hate to hear that, but I don't doubt it, man. Ugh.
Fine. I did this and I'm proud I did it. But if you think we're there for tea and crumpets, well, I mean, Cash is there all day. We share it. Our offices are linked. He turns on the faucet. I hear it. He's there he gets in like 6 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't leave till 7 at night. I'm in there at 7:30 in the morning. He uses the gym. I work out in my apartment, but I stare at these 4 walls all day in DC. By myself, divorced from my wife, not divorced, but I mean, separated, divorced. And it's hard. I mean,
Wait, what? Was that breaking news?
Was that a Freudian slip?
Seriously, I what? Okay. I don't know, man. I'm sure social media is having a fun time with this one.
You know, we love each other, and it's hard to be apart.
But you're doing some great work. You're straightening out the FBI. You're moving buildings. There's a lot of change.
I got one more thing. I'm not asking anyone to trust me. Trust is for fools. Just wait for the results. That's all I'm asking. Don't trust me. Trust is for fools. Too many actors in government have asked you to trust them and screwed you in the past. We're not doing that.
Yeah, speed. You don't need speed in this. You need to do it right.
Smooth is fast.
Yeah, and before we go, though, can you please address the seashells one more time? Sorry.
Don't trust me, but what I need you to do is be patient and trust me.
Yeah.
It's just not a good approach. It's just not, and like a lot of it's not his own fault. I mean, they painted themselves in a corner with some of the big stuff, and now they feel obligated to have to double down on some more stuff. And I think that the way that they could have got in differently was to have the shock and awe factor and had significant changes, and then they wouldn't be having to lean on what is salacious and what's going to play well on Twitter. You know, they shouldn't be on Twitter. Right. I mean, as much as they say, oh, I'm a big boy, I don't care what they say about me. They very clearly do. Right. I mean, the best thing you could do is get insulted by James Comey and just go, I got nothing.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, he's got time to do that. I got to work on my job here. You know, his job that he used to have and got fired from.
Yeah, I'm just Googling here. The Epstein files were released by Pam Bondi on February 27th. Dan Bongino didn't become a part of the FBI until March 17th. He, of course, inherited that fun thing there. Let me just check real quick here. Cash Patel, first day.
February 20th, I believe.
Okay, let's see here. Must be, yeah, sworn in February 21st. Yeah, so there you go. So that release was already well in the works before these two gentlemen were able to do anything with it. Okay, Mr. Steve Friend, it has been an absolute pleasure. Anything else that you wanted to discuss as we covered those two interviews there? I think we did a thorough deep dive. Hey, look at that, and matched the show title. Okay, so Steve, tell everybody again where your podcast is, the American Radicals podcast, where they can find it, and all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah. American Radicals podcast. We like to call it colloquially AMRAD.
AMRAD. Yes, hold on. I wrote this down. Hang on a second. Y'all write this down. Episode 214. That was where you broke down the new term that we have. As those of us that didn't buy the narrative hook, line, and sinker during the Biden years of if you question the COVID shot, if you question the vaccine, the masks, if you questioned how we were operating with the schools reopened, if you have questions of the government, you were termed a
domestic violent extremist. Agave. Yeah. It's 214. It's called the powder keg. It actually brought the next term that you're going to start seeing a lot more often, which is nihilistic violent extremist, relating that to terrorism, which is interesting because the basic foundations of a nihilistic violent extremist is they have no ideology. And terrorism is based on having an ideology, but the government never lets that get in the way of entrapping the next level of people.
That's the American Radicals podcast, episode 214. Go and check that out. I look forward to having you again on in the near future. I'm sure there'll be something for us to talk about. And I would be interested. Text me if you ever change your grade on the Patel Bongino, FBI, as it were. F, I think you said earlier. Yeah, that's. What can they get? Can they get extra credit? Can they bring that up?
They have to stay for summer school.
No!
They're probably going to have to address the social media, according to Ainsley.
Okay, so at themikeshow.com if you want to check out this episode and all the previous ones we've done. Of course, everything is pinned to the top here of the X page. Tomorrow we just hang out and I don't know. Maybe I'll have some animal videos. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna have Brad Staggs, and then we're gonna have my buddy Steve Baker from The Blaze is going to be in as well. And then next week, and let me look over here. Oh yeah, so next week we're gonna talk with Ashton Forbes because he was, if I'm being honest, the first conversation I ever had was about MH370 with Ashton Forbes, which gave me the thought, you know what? Let me do a deep dive thing every week. Anyhow, he was on with Pat Gray, my day job over at The Blaze, last week, giving us an update on MH370 and all the orbs and everything. And he said something there that kind of, I perked my ears up. I want to talk to him next week, next Thursday at this time, 3 p.m. Eastern. I want to talk to him about who are the gatekeepers of this technology that could revolutionize the world forever. So we're going to do a little deep dive into that. So I hope you'll join us then. But Steve Friend, the American Radicals podcast, awesome, man, as always. I appreciate your time. And I'm so grateful for all of you for being a part. Shout out to Hero Wes and to Gabby over at the Instagram page. I appreciate all y'all do as well. I will see y'all tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on X. Thanks so much.